right, folks, have a seat and pour your drink neat as Whiskers and Whiskeys presents Conference Previews 2024, the Big Ten. I'm Mike with DJ. How's it going, buddy?
You know what? I would be absolutely perfect if my youngest would sleep for longer than 30 minutes at a time. But, other than that, great.
Goes with the territory, bud. Goes with the territory. I tell you, I was just telling some coworkers today that having two, it's man on man, but it feels more like you're just being double teamed the entire time. You got one taking the top off on post routes. You got the other one just grinding you in the trenches. It's terrible, man. It is. It's a blessing. Children are a blessing, but boy, it is challenging.
Yes. Definitely agree. And actually, today was a good day. They went to daycare, so that was nice. It's just kind of these nighttime things are, becoming somewhat of a dread.
The worst. Yeah. The nighttime's definitely the worst, man. It's that's just the mental warfare, right? It's like, gosh, I would love to just get some good sleep in here. So, but with them both going to daycare now, maybe that tuckers them out a little bit, and hopefully better days are ahead. My better days are definitely ahead. But
I will tell you what, though, this has given me some new life between this and being the head coach at Georgia Tech. Has just really infused me with the energy that I need. So I'm glad to be back.
If your youngest isn't sleeping, you can get one of those little Bjorns, right? And if she'll sleep while she's being held, you can just strap her to you and then get a game in.
That has happened. That happens frequently. I have the night duty anyway. I got to be up to feed her at midnight. So if she does wake up, then that's where she goes.
There you go.
Got a nice little chair and boppy combo. I've got that down. Yeah,
that's awesome. That is very good. That is talent right there. I could not nail that right now. I don't think so. That is impressive.
All right. Big Ten. We talked about the ACC earlier first. Now we are on to the Big Ten.
I can't believe you didn't ask me how my college football 25 experience is going right now. All right.
Oh, well, sorry. For everyone, we had for everyone that's listening, we've had a very long conversation about this offline. But that is very rude of me to not bring this online.
I just wanted you to ask.
Did you finish your season with your boys? Have you gotten to that point, or are you still in pause?
I understand that you got articles to write and you got tweets to tweet and you got iPodcasts to make and all that stuff, right? But I'm sick and tired of it. It's super unprofessional. It's not only unprofessional, it's disrespectful to my boys who have worked super hard all year. All right, undefeated, American Conference champions. Okay, those boys worked hard. We got the defensive end, linebacker, strong safety of the year. Let's talk about them. Let's talk about Harris, running back of the year, snubbed by the Heisman Committee. All right, let's talk about them. I'm focused on those boys, and I'm focused on the Penn State Nittany Lions in the Fiesta Bowl. That's all these rumors. I ain't never even been to Florida. Okay, why would I go to Florida? All right, on vacation. I'm in Carolina. That's the only beach we got. Playing beaches. I got my family's got life here. We are settled down to our roots.
We got plenty of sunny beaches.
Conjecture about the Florida offensive coordinator position. We don't need to hear that. All right, that's garbage.
You missed an opportunity there in your rant.
What? I'm a man. I'm 40.
Avi, we have beaches here too. Well, who the fuck wants to see him? So for the listeners, I know we kind of got a little derailed there, but both of us, as I'm sure most of you, especially if you have the new gen console, or if you've taken the dive like me to get one, you've played NCAA 25. It is absolutely incredible. We are actively trying to find a way to incorporate that into our episodes, or to even create a whole new series. We have some ideas. Don't know if they're going to work, but just bear with us here when it comes to us talking about these teams that we've come to love. And honestly, like, truthfully, it has made me even more of a fan of college football, because the two teams, Louisiana Tech and Georgia Tech, that I've played with, like, I don't really know much about them outside of some jerseys and here and there, but like, I forgot about the Ramblin' Wreck and the car that they drive onto the field. Like, it just makes me appreciate some of these schools that don't get TV time, and you don't necessarily get to watch in real life. So yeah, I don't know. It's been actually pretty fun, and just appreciating what coaches have to do and just the whole process, right? Like, it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a blast. It's awesome to have it back. I have this thought. I wonder if it would even be fun, but I wonder if it would be fun to do an online dynasty with, like, just us or something, but like super sim the whole thing, but like make like crazy conferences. Like, I have like either go like 2 conferences, right? Just bring everyone together into 2, but still keep Notre Dame separate. That'd be hilarious. Or like do some crazy, like, 8, 10, 12 conferences, all broken down by geos and everything like that. I don't know, something like that. Or you could bring it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that would be fun, because it would you just be doing it to see the results at the end. But
yeah, I don't know. Well, we got to think of some fun ways to do this together. We were kind of talking about it before, but until we have a good idea, we won't talk about it on air. But just know that we are thinking through a fun way to incorporate this into our podcast.
And if you're playing, feel free to on the podcast, leave a review, leave a 5-star review, and tell us who you're playing with. If in your dynasty, tell us how you're doing,
Yes.
Or, go ahead and on social media, go ahead and any comment. Doesn't matter what we're posting. Just be like, hey, start talking about NCAA 25, and we will automatically engage with that.
Yeah. Maybe you went down the player path and you got promised a starting spot, and then you got to that location and they put you on the bench. Just let us know. Let us know your pain, your successes.
Yes, your triumphs, your tragedies. Yes.
And there's no judging. You don't even have to tell us what
judges.
Difficulty you're on.
No judges.
I told you in the ACC one, I'm on varsity because I'm looking to have a good time before and not throw my controller at my TV. So
I have enough stuff to stress me out. I don't need to play on Heisman,
All right. Back to real life.
The Big Ten.
The Big Ten. So the Big Ten, like all of these conferences, have new members, and these ones kind of really started. Actually, I guess the SEC taking Texas and Oklahoma really started, the wheels turning here in this whole conference realignment. But I feel like this kind of cemented the death of our, beloved Pac-12 when the Big Ten added Washington, UCLA, USC, and Oregon to the conference.
And I gotta say, just like looking over the revised conferences this year, like, this is the one that definitely has me the most excited. Like, I think the bringing in these West Coast schools and the prestige that they have and stuff, definitely. Like, I think Big 12 is probably number 2 in my mind, but like, it's very exciting what this conference is going to look like now, especially that they got rid of the divisions, everything like that. Like, I think it's going to be a very interesting conference going forward. Excited the way that they have it set up, and excited by a lot of these teams too. There are a lot of teams in this conference that are, I think, it's going to be very interesting now that they got rid of the divisions, the East and West, or Legends of Leaders, whatever it used to be. Like, I think it's going to be a really, really interesting conference this year.
Yeah, I think this is probably the first conference where you're going to really see potentially like a clash of play styles, but at like a high level, right?
Yeah.
So like the Pac-12 has been known for really having, perfected on a multiple levels for multiple teams, like air raid, spread them out, type of offenses in the Big Ten still has teams. I mean, the national champion is one of them, that want to just punch you in the face and grind out games. And while, Indiana's tried it in the Big Ten, and they don't really have the hogs to make a difference, it'll be interesting to see what like Oregon going to Kinnick Stadium's going to look like, right? Or USC going, to Kinnick or different places like that where it's, really contrasting play styles.
Yeah, I mean, hell, even like, Rutgers going out to Eugene for like a 10:30 kick or 10:30 Eastern kickoff. Like, it's just going to be super interesting, I think. Yeah, I was actually just checking to see who's going. Are they going to Kinnick this year, Oregon? No, they're not.
No, I believe USC might though. Someone on the West Coast, one of those West Coast teams, I believe, are going into Iowa.
That should be mandatory here. Oh, I got Iowa's schedule.
That should be mandatory.
Washington's going there. Yeah.
Or even just like on the flip side, like while USC, the Coliseum isn't a hard place to play because they rarely fill it, still just the idea of having to go out to the West Coast, right? Yeah. It's iconic. Going out to the West Coast, obviously, if they get good again, I mean, last year, they had obviously a lot of good players, but couldn't really put together like a full great squad. But when they do, and that thing gets a little bit more full, it'll be tough. And it's just like, the Big Ten's only used to going out, a few teams going out to the Rose Bowl, on occasion. So even just having to travel like that, I think is going to be tough.
For sure. Yeah, Iowa does go to UCLA.
Okay.
So yeah,
that should be interesting.
Yeah, it absolutely will be.
All right, so why don't we give you guys a reminder of what happened in 2023? So Michigan was undefeated, playing the champion of the Big Ten East, and it was really a three-team horse race there, with them being the favorite. And it was very interesting because Michigan had to go to Penn State. Penn State had hosted Ohio, or went to Ohio State. Ohio State had to go to Michigan, so it was a little round robin of all those teams, and Michigan was the one that came out on top of that. And then the Big Ten West was an absolute joke, like it usually is, but it came down to Iowa and Wisconsin, like it has for the last decade, and Iowa was the representative. And then that game went exactly how everyone thought it would be, with them being double-digit dogs and getting absolutely massacred, Iowa, that is. And yeah, I am so thankful that the Big Ten West is dead.
Yeah,
it's just good for everyone.
It really is. I mean, it was just such a non, the real Big Ten championship was, for the past several years, has been the game. Like Ohio State, Michigan has been the real Big Ten championship for the past however many years. So it's going to be nice that game's going to have some meaning. I think that no one's happier than the Big Ten, right? Because you hate to, have your conference championship game essentially be meaningless for so long, right? So when is the last time a West team has won I'm going to pull that up here, unless you know off the top of your head.
It was Wisconsin, and it was probably Russell Wilson.
Because they played Oregon in the Rose Bowl, Stanford. They played Stanford in the Rose Bowl that year.
Yeah, I think they won like back-to-back Big Ten championships, and I know because Michigan State lost one of those on a stupid hold on a punt return late in the game. When it was Leaders and Legends, and that was probably
11 and 12. Yeah. Wisconsin beat Michigan State in 11. Wisconsin beat Nebraska in 12, and then Sparty beat the Buckeyes in 13. Buckeyes were from the Leaders. Sparty was from the Legends. And then, when they split into East and West, I wasn't even close. 59-0. Oh no, 16-13 was the closest, which was Sparty over Iowa in 15.
I remember that. LJ Scott, the goal line.
Buckeyes Badgers in 17 was close. That was Cardale, right?
Oh, is that the one they won the Natty?
I think so. Yeah. J.K. Dobbins. Yeah, that was Cardale. Yeah. Oh, 2020. Well, that was a weird year, but 22-10, Ohio State over there, Northwestern. But yeah, I mean, it's just been a slaughter every year.
Northwestern, that's right. Yeah, it hasn't been good. I mean, obviously, it's given those teams out in the West a chance, and for the East, it's if you survive that, you've done well. You've
technical little glitch there. I'm not using my wireless mouse and hit the stop on the recording. Anyways, what were we talking about there? The old Big Ten, East West gave the West teams a chance. EJ, I'm sorry I cut you off midstream there, pal. That's incredible. I am also suffering from old sleep deprivation over here, so
it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
It's all right. It's only episode 2 of this year. We're gonna hit our stride.
We're still working it out. Like I can barely remember, the tag at the end. Mike said, "Have a seat instead, grab a seat."
I did. I was hoping you would not notice that.
Yeah, we caught that. It's fun, guys. We're working back. We're doing our best here. We're not in mid-season form yet, but we'll get there.
We're going through camp still for sure.
I mean, whatever I was saying wasn't important. Truthfully, we know the Big Ten West stinks, and it's only benefited them. Oh, that's what I was saying. Basically, just like if you were the East, if you were to survive, the East, then you knew you were in for a good chance at winning your bowl game. Unless you're running up against the SEC eventual national championship winner, you had a chance in the playoff, but now all of that changes, and I think it changes it for the better, some for the worse. Sometimes you're going to have matchups in season that aren't going to matter aren't going to matter as much because then they can see each other again eventually in the conference championship.
Interesting point.
Little sneak peek there, but I think overall it's a good change. And then just to give everyone a reminder of our predictions from last year. So Mike, we both chose Michigan to win it. That was, I think, the easiest thing that we could choose. It was deciding who was going to be the Big Ten West loser, and you went with Wisconsin. Very excited about Luke Fickell and him coming to Wisconsin, completely doing a 180 with their play style. And I chose Iowa, and really the big reason why was just because I thought it would take a year for Wisconsin to, at least a year for Wisconsin to make that big drastic change. And it was a disgusting game between the two of them, and Iowa won, and that was it.
And that was it. And but much like the ACC, it was always Michigan. It was just a matter of who was going to get fed to the Wolverines, as it were. Yes. But now here we are, new year. I would be shocked if either of us have Michigan in the championship for multiple reasons. I'm sure we'll get into. But so here we go. EJ, I know last time we talked a little bit about our contenders, our pretenders, and then our dark horses. I feel like we might have very similar contenders. Should we perhaps start with pretenders, go to dark horses, and then bring it around to contenders? I mean, it's a little process of elimination, but I'm trying to think of ways to spice this up.
Yeah, I mean, that's I'm glad that we're on the same page already, because my honest question was going to be to you before we started was, how many true contenders do you have in this conference?
Just 2.
Yes, and that's where I'm at. So I agree. So why don't we then start with our pretenders? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. All right. So, I'll just get it out of the way. Michigan, I said it right now. I think that they're definitely a pretender in this conference. I am actually right now, their win total is at 9.5. I am going to take the under on that. The defense is very solid, but this coaching turnover, the uncertainty on the offense, I think it's just too much to overcome. They have a QB competition going on right now. The skill players are all gone, graduated or transferred, need to be replaced. But a lot of starters and stars are returning on defense. But it's just too much of a change. I think there's definitely going to be some complacency with winning the Natty and having so much success over the past couple of years. I think that their new head coach is, and they also have sanctions potentially coming in. I saw just something about that on Twitter. So, I think that there's going to be some tough sledding. The Wolverines, definitely were living champagne wishes and caviar dreams for the past couple of years, but I think that they are going to have a really tough year. I think it's that there's always a chance of natty hangover anyways. But I think it's going to be pretty extreme this year. So I am taking the under of 9.5 wins because they also don't have a very their schedule's definitely a little challenging too. Because they go to Ohio State. They have Washington coming at home. That Washington I don't think that's strong, but they have to go out to UCLA. With Northwestern and Wisconsin both right before that. And, I'm not saying that Northwestern and Wisconsin are going to be great teams this year, but I think that those are going to be tough games. So, I can definitely see them losing a couple here, especially if some sanctions come down, especially with all the uncertainty on offense. So, I'm sorry, I was looking at Iowa's schedule there. That's my bad. I will look at Michigan's schedule. Sorry. Michigan goes to Washington.
9 is interesting.
They're still at the shoe. They go to Washington. They have USC coming out there. They have Oregon coming out there. I think it's going to be.
You forgot about the big one in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, Texas. That's hell, Fresno State even. I mean, they're dude. Fresno State's no joke. And it's not like Michigan's never lost to a group of 5 team before in their opener. So I agree with you on that. And again, I want to preface this with we as much as I have a disdain for Michigan, I also had them well in the playoff last year and had them easily winning the Big Ten. But I just think while their defense was elite and will likely be elite again because they do return probably 3 or 4 first round picks, especially one of my favorite players, even though he plays for them, is Will Johnson. He is just is surefire of a lockdown corner and would not need to play this year if if the rules weren't different. He would have definitely been a top pick last year. A couple of defensive linemen that are nasty, and then they revamped their linebacking core with a bunch of really top level transfers. So defense will be nasty. Defense will be good enough to win. I'm saying 9 games because of, I would say around 9 is probably where I'm capping it. I don't see them beating Texas. I don't see them beating Oregon. I don't see them beating Ohio State. Will they drop another one here or there? Potentially, but I think that defense is good enough to give them the benefit of the doubt. But like you said on offense, I mean, how can you blame them? You lose your quarterback who was a top pick, and the next guy, they don't even know quite yet. The running back, while Edwards was a 5-star kid, great change of pace, great explosiveness, I don't see him being a workhorse, right? Corum was great for a reason, right? So it'll be interesting to see what happens when he has to shoulder all of the load. The receiving core last year, while Roman Wilson was very underrated, that was it. And he's not there. So the tight end's elite, Loveland's elite. He'll be, first round pick, first tight end off the board. But then the big deal is what's made Michigan good the last 3 years beside, other things is their offensive line, and they had 6 offensive linemen drafted. 6. Mm-hmm. Mind you, you start 5. They had 6. So I think the most experienced returner they have has played 4 games. So that it's going to be likely a lot of growing pains on offense this year. The defense will keep them in games, but I agree with you. I think 9.5, just with the 3 big names there. I think that's a pretty good lock to be under, just because of those 3 national contenders that are coming. That's on their schedule. So. I would say if they get one of those, then there's a chance they get upset by someone else, because I don't think that this team would have the focus if you pull off that win. I think that they would go out and lay an egg the next week. So
yeah. Okay. Other pretender. It's just like, rinse and repeat. It's Penn State for me. I mean, James Franklin is James Franklin, but let me let me outline why. And I have to be careful with pretender because there's.
Okay, so I did it again, and I have moved my Zoom window now, guys. I've moved my Zoom window, so hopefully this won't happen again. Uh,
Remind you, it was
I'm not even drinking tonight.
that he was drinking and having a few nips of whiskey. Tonight, he is just bound
Sober
and
as a bird.
determined
Sober as a nun in church on Sunday. All right.
to interrupt me while I'm trying.
So no, please, because I can't wait to talk about this more. So Penn State, you have to be careful with pretenders. What you were saying?
Yes, because of their strength of schedule, it's very easy this year. So while I say pretender, I think it's more of like a pretender for actually competing for the conference. I haven't decided yet, but I have a sneaking suspicion that I'm going to sneak them into my playoff, but I don't feel confident that I would have them win a game. So here's why. Not only was that offense horrific last year, absolutely horrific, could not complete a forward pass with a 5-star running back, with a 5-star quarterback.
Two 5-star running backs and quarterbacks.
Two of them. It didn't work, and I don't think anything they did. There's one thing they did that could potentially help, but that's it. So Aller, you assume he's going to have a bump. So will the running backs, being another year in the system or another year playing. That's fine, but their offensive line is a complete rebuild, and they lost a lot of really good players, including a top offensive lineman they got drafted in the first round in Fashanu. Fashanu.
Fashanu. Yep.
And but I don't think they improved the receiving core at all. I don't think their offensive line has been a mess, and until I see Drew Aller throw a pass more than 5 yards, I just can't believe in them. And I know that they got the offensive coordinator from Kansas, Kohl, and that was an absolute win for him as in James Franklin. But I have reservations on them being that much better, and I think they're going to have to be that much better because I think the defense is going to take a step back. So I think they lost a lot of really good players. They lost Manny Diaz, who might be a terrible head coach, but was a fantastic defensive coordinator. And Tom Allen is one of the people I hate the most. He is Pete Carroll light. He is an absolute gum-chewing cheerleader of a joke, and I don't care if he made Indiana okay. That doesn't move the needle to me. And he moves their defense to a 4-2-5, which means they're going to have 5 safeties on the field. And I don't know. I just think you're going to end up running up against teams that can run the ball really well. And I don't think we have enough top of the line USC type offenses that's really going to actually help them. So I just think that it's going to be the typical James Franklin, where they're going to beat the teams they're favored against, lose against the teams that they're not. And because their schedule is so easy, you're likely looking at a 2-loss team that, can maybe back into the playoff. But I just think it's going to be status quo for Penn State, to be honest with you.
So this is the first time that we disagree. I think that when you asked, how many contenders do I have? I said 2, but 1B contender is Penn State. I think that they are in a position where I mentioned yesterday how sometimes you're rebuilding, sometimes you're reloading. I think they're reloading. I think that we have to keep in mind that 2022 recruiting class that they had was one of the best of all time. And this is the year for that 2022 class to make their mark. Now, I absolutely agree that, and I think this is the story last year, right, is that they were great, but not elite. And can they take the step forward to being elite? Because James Franklin will win the games that he's supposed to, but he can't beat ranked opponents. He can't beat his rivals. Can he do that this year? I'm not saying that they're going to beat Ohio State this year at home, but I do with their schedule that they have. They're over right now in 9.5 wins. I'm absolutely smashing the over on 9.5 wins. I think, with Kotelnicki being there and what he did in Kansas, I have a hard time thinking that he's not going to take a step forward. Allen and Singleton, I mean, those guys are absolute studs of running backs. I know that the offensive line lost some things, but you still got what do they have? They have they lost Fashanu, right? But they have Wormley, who's there for 26 straight starts at right guard. They've got Sheldon, who's top 150. JB Nelson's the number one JUCO lineman. Anthony Donka, they're all 4 stars. They're all projected starters. I think that the offensive line is going to be strong. Wide receiver is definitely a question mark, right? They got to figure out what's going on there. But I think that these guys are going to be primed to play on offense. And then on defense, man, I know you just, Tom Allen's not your guy, but look at what they got, at corner, they've got King, Dixon, and Hardy. Those guys are all going to go pro. Safeties, Reed is returning. Winston's returning. They have got guys here on defense. I know that, they, with the Big Ten, going to a 4-2-5, that might not match up super well, but man, look at their schedule. Look at who they're playing. They've got, the only losses that I could see on the schedule, they go to West Virginia. That's going to be tough to start the season, but they go out to USC. I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to get that done because then they have to bye. They go to Wisconsin, Ohio State, Washington, at Purdue, at Minnesota, at Maryland. It's really hard for me to find a loss other than that, maybe West Virginia. But I think it's gonna be a hard time finding a loss there. So while I don't have them in the championship game, because I can see this being a 10-2 team. Well, I project that they're going to be 10-2. Maybe that loss to West Virginia, maybe they stumble somewhere else along the way. But I think that this is the team that can get it done. I don't think that they're going to take that next step forward to being elite, but I think that they're going to be really strong. I definitely see them being in the CFP this year.
And I will just give a minor correction. So when you're talking about their secondary, those 3 guys that are highlighted all went pro. The wording was funny. They're all gone. So I had to replace them.
Gotcha. So
that was kind of another reason. I agree with you. That's why I said, so when I'm just saying pretender, I'm also saying, if I'm thinking about my playoff and I'm thinking about, the third best SEC team that's going to host a playoff game, are they going in and beating that team? Yeah, sure. I guess if you have them rated, one of the next best 4, and they could end up being, I haven't really done that calculus yet in my head. I'm skeptical that they would win a playoff game. So then that's why I'm still they can go 10-2 and make it. That's great. But do I really think they're threatening anything? Personally, to me, no.
But if we're looking for guys that, if things go the right way for them, that great things could happen. I think the Penn State and Indiana lines are there, right? Sure. And I definitely think, despite my misstep on the secondary there, I think that Kotelnicki on the offensive side of the ball, I think that really is the thing that's driving it for me.
For sure.
And over 9.5 wins, it's very hard to find 3 losses on their schedule. So
I agree with that. And I'll say, it's not like they're replacing those players, and they're replacing them with blue chippers. Don't get me wrong. They're not getting, people off the scrubs, but that's been the case, and they're still who we think they are.
This is the year, though. This is the year, though, because they have not gotten the transfers. Their transfer classes aren't great. The recruiting class last year still, top 15 classes the past 2 years, but that 2022 class, the time is now for them to make something happen.
All right, dark horse, because I'm going to tell you, my dark horse is probably my favorite pick in all of this. I am so excited for this. It's unbelievable. Like I had to really like talk myself out of like not putting this team irresponsibly in this championship just because of who's at the top. But
I've got 3 dark horses. I wonder if I
have a single dark horse, and I am excited about it.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I have 3. I was maybe gonna do 4.
Jesus.
Well, 4 from the fact that I think that the 4th one, they're just gonna. I think that they're gonna smash their win total.
Okay, that's fair. If win total is what you're basing that off of, that's fair.
Yeah. None of these other teams that I think are dark horses are like. I just think that they're very strong for their win totals. Boy, gosh, should I go? I don't know. I don't even think I have. I don't think I have who you have. Who you have? I'm curious.
All right, you want me to go into this?
Yeah. I want to see who you got.
I'm going into this. I'm going to go into this with a decent amount of depth. I am all for the Big Red. I am Cornhuskers.
They're my top dark horse. Yeah.
I think this team, now that they have Dylan Raiola and just the history behind Matt Rule and his collegiate programs he's taken over,
year 2
have really jumped in year 2. They steal this legacy 5-star, number 1 overall recruit from Georgia, get him to come home where his dad played. Shout out Dominic Raiola, like a 15-year Detroit Lion. I think this team and their schedule, this is a team I'm ready for. This is my Virginia Tech, because you not only have Dylan Raiola, 5-star kid, number 1 overall recruit, immediately going to start as a true freshman, has looked as good as you can in spring ball, understanding it's spring ball, but he is just a future first overall pick, ready for him. Yeah. Not only do they have their running back 1 and 2 both got hurt last year really early in the season. They were without them. They're both back. They're both ready to start. That's a big deal. Now they have
Ramir Johnson. Yep.
Right. So now they have Malachi Coleman, who was a near 5-star, entering his second season. You have Garcia Castaneda, who had season-ending injury as receivers, back. But like what I really love is the diversity in receivers. So not only do you have those 2 guys that have already played for the team, have that experience, but the 2 transfers they bring in from Power 5 teams are 6'4". So you add 2 huge, big frame guys, and then they have 2 more guys who are absolute burners that they're going to tell just to run straight, one actually being a track star at Nebraska. So you give Raiola the 2 best running backs from last year. You give him a diversity of wide receivers. You give him a tight end who was the number 1 rated prospect in the entire 2021 class, that then went through consecutive ACL tears until he finally played a full season last year and looked fantastic in Fedone, and he's 6'6", 250 and runs a 4.5. So you add him to the mix, and then the offensive line, while they were really good at run, or they were good, average to good in run blocking, they were very poor in pass protection. I think that had a lot to do with Jeff Sims running around back there at quarterback and the lack of receivers to throw to. But they have the starting 5 have at least 4 years of college football experience. 4 of those starters are back, including the 5th one they replaced was a starting guard at Florida all last year. So I think you have a very veteran offensive line and all of these skill positions to shelter Raiola. And that's not even to talk about the black shirts being back. Yep. If you're Cornhuskers fans, I had no idea until I did some research, but basically you have in the 60s, the coach had to give the starting defensive linemen or the starting defense black jerseys to practice with. It just became a huge moniker and a big lure ever since that defense wears those in the practice field, but they only really get called black shirts when they're dominant. Last year, they were a top 10 defense, and that top 10 defense returns 8 starters this year. And if you
the coordinator and
the coordinator, and he almost got pulled back to his alma mater in UCLA. He didn't. So you just have all this going for them. And then what most people that aren't fan or that are at least our age or younger that don't remember when Nebraska was actually good. I'm familiar because of Michigan State in the Big Ten, but Memorial Stadium has like a 40-year sellout. There's nothing to do in Lincoln, Nebraska beside watch football. And that place is hard. Even when they're bad and it's a day game, it's a pain in the ass to play there. Now you tell me give them hope and potentially give them some primetime games. I mean, it's setting up. And if you look at the schedule, they very realistically, if Raiola is just not a complete, shit all down himself player, they're 7-0 going into the bye week. And then, then they have Ohio State loss. And then their last 4 very winnable games to at least get another, like to only lose one, if not potentially win out. I'm all in on the Cornhuskers.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is very well said. This was, definitely my. Definitely expect a hot start here. That's why I says, well, their win total right now is 7.5, and as you said, they can go 7-0. They have UTEP, Colorado, Northern Iowa, Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers. 5 of those 6 at home. Then they have the bye. Then they're at Indiana. That's 7 wins right there. Then UCLA, at USC, Wisconsin at Iowa. So yeah, I mean, you nailed it, dude. There's really nothing I think I would add on this one. Definitely, this is probably as sure of a bet as you can get on their win total, the over. So I'm with you, man. I agree completely. This is my number one with a bullet underdog for sure.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't think even if they go one loss, like I don't think they're sneaking into the conference championship. But am I going to put them in the playoff? Decided yet, but you gotta believe it's going to be a very big consideration for me because a lot of those things are aligning for them, and I'm excited. It was a very proud historic program that's just been terrible since they've been in the Big Ten, and I'm looking forward to them.
This is where the conference gets tough with just the way the schedule has kind of gone for some of these teams. No longer having the East and West divisions, this is where it gets tough because, like, if Penn State and Nebraska have cake schedules and they should be very good teams, could definitely at least be 10-2. And then that we haven't even talked about our contenders, right? So I have 2 other teams that I think could be underdogs as well. But like it's gonna be tough. You're gonna have some very legit teams with. I mean, anything can happen in college football. We're talking about this right now. We're saying that these are 2 10-win teams potentially, and they haven't even played a snap. So, like, anything can happen, obviously. But it could be a very interesting situation. I know people are very excited about the CFP being 12, but like as I was making my bracket, I'm like, this is tough. Like, who are we leaving out in some of these situations? So, I agree completely. My other 2, anything else on Nebraska?
No, that's it. And the fact that they have a defensive tackle nicknamed the Polar Bear. So
go Big Red, dude. Big Red. My other 2 teams that I think that are gonna do pretty well. One of them, I'm not taking an official bet on their win total. USC. They are in a quarterback battle right now between Miller Moss, who had 6 touchdowns in the Holiday Bowl, something I forgot about, and then Jaden Maivia from UNLV, the fun and gun offense. I think that's going to be very interesting to watch. You got Zachariah Branch back at wide receiver, Deuce Robinson at tight end. They did struggle in pass pro last year, obviously, which was a very big issue, but I think that they're going to get better. Defense is a big question mark, as they were last year. For people that may or may not remember, I had USC in my Pac-12 championship game last year because I said, oh, man, all those blue chip chancers, they're going to be in good shape. And that's what they have again, a bunch of blue chip transfers. I put too much faith in it last year. I'm going to back off from putting that much faith in it this year, but they do have Lynn from UCLA who turned that defense around. He just maybe has the same house and apartment, just going to a different location now. The big thing with them, though, is that their schedule really isn't all that difficult. They start with LSU in Vegas, which is definitely going to be a challenge. They go to Michigan, they go to Minnesota, they go to Maryland, and then they're at Washington, UCLA, which is on the same, that's fine for them. They get Penn State at home, which we talked could be winnable. They end with Notre Dame, which is going to be tough. So like the reason, really, their bookends of LSU and Notre Dame, the non-conference games, are why I'm kind of staying away from their win total. Their Big Ten schedule really isn't that bad. But there's too many unknowns for me to make a firm bet here. I lean towards underdog just because I think at some point talent wins out, especially if Lynn does a good job with the defense. And I really like my Via. I think that I actually want to play with UNLV at some point in NCAA because the fun and gun offense is pretty sweet. So we'll see what happens there, but I think that they could. It's definitely a bit of a toss up because of all the unknowns. I lean towards being more bullish with the Trojans this year.
Yeah, I'm kind of just the same. I didn't believe in them last year. I don't believe in them this year because whatever gains I think they're going to make on defense, I think are going to be offset by losing Caleb Williams on offense. So, I mean, Miller Moss can be great and all, but like the reason why they survived as many games as they did on offense with that offensive line was because of him. And while Lincoln Riley is a genius on offense, don't get me wrong, I don't think they're going to all of a sudden be terrible. I just think that I don't see anything they did that makes me believe that they're going to outdo the first overall pick, potential generational quarterback that was a multi-year starter, a multi-year in his system. And then on defense, it can't get any worse. So it'll get better because it can't get any worse. But I think they're going to be middling. I don't think they'll be terrible. I don't think they'll be really pushing anything yet. But obviously any kind of defensive improvement sets them up for Miller Moss's second year of starting potentially to really be dangerous.
Yeah. And I should as we talk about defense here too, that's probably a good transition to my other dog because while this team has no defense, the other team only has defense and a punter, and that's the Iowa Hawkeyes. And their win total right now sits at 7.5. I'm taking that. I also am going to have a CFP ticket in for these guys, and I'm going to have a CFP ticket in for the Huskers. I didn't mention that. I mean, it's a cake schedule, and putting it just very, very cake schedule at Ohio State. They're definitely going to lose that one. Don't see a lot of other trouble on their schedule until Nebraska at the end of the year. But man, I mean, if they can just get literally anything going on offense, this is a 9 or 10 win team with the defense that they have.
It's a big if. But I agree with you. The defense is going to be absolutely elite. They really only lose Cooper DeJean. It's going to be right back there. On offense, at least they get Cade McNamara back, but although I don't know when exactly, because it sounds like he's still rehabbing his knee. It's exactly what you said. I mean, the offense couldn't get any worse. If it's any better, they're going to likely stumble their way into 10. I have to do enough research on the rest of the teams to see if that's going to be good enough because obviously, even though they're in the Big Ten, they're not going to have a strength of schedule to, I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are 1-loss, 2-loss teams that you were really going to have to pick and choose between.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they're going to have the resume, but 7.5, I didn't realize that's low. As you said, the schedule's so easy and that defense.
They have 7 home games. Points. They have 7 home games. Yeah. Not many people are coming into Kinnick and winning, right?
You know what though? I will say though, Iowa State. I think we're looking at potentially a Cy-Hawk game that could be fun.
It could be a fun Cy-Hawk, yes, for sure.
I think that could be trouble for them. But still, that's your second loss then potentially, right? Or even if it's your third loss, that still blows 7.5 out of the water. So.
Yeah. So, all right. So that takes us through the underdogs. Let's get to the meat of it, right?
So why don't we do this? Because I think clearly Oregon, Ohio State are national championship contenders. I think you're going to be able to make a case for both. I would be interested to see who you're going to pick to win. And this is really challenging because they play each other once in the regular season.
They do.
And so it's one of those things that I went back and forth with. I thought I had an answer, and I didn't think I had an answer, because then, like, are you really going to say one of the two are going to beat the other one twice? And if not, then who wins the first one? Who wins the most important one? Or maybe not, because they're both going to get their shot. Anyway, likely in the playoffs. So maybe it's better if we potentially just go with who you're going to choose to win it and why, because they're both pretty damn good.
Yeah, they both have a 10.5 win total. I'm taking the over on both. I'm putting in a CFP championship for both of them. I'm putting in the Big Ten championship ticket for both of them. Like you, I came to one answer initially, and then for like a half second, I switched to the other team, and then I just thought, what am I doing here? The answer's very clear. And, Oregon lost to Washington last year. We were crowning them, and then they lost to Washington in the regular season. We said, okay, well, they're definitely going to get them in the championship game. Like, no doubt about that. And smashed them. And then they lost in the championship game. So they surely won't do that again. Except I do think they will. I think Oregon's going to lose both games. I think that it's just so, the talent that the Ohio State Buckeyes have this year is legendary. This should go down as one of the best teams in all of college football. You've got Will Howard. You've got Julian Sayin, that son of a bitch, who was an Alabama recruit. And I understand why he left. DeBoer brought in his guy and everything like that. You've got Judkins, who is absolutely broken in NCAA. You've got Seth McLaughlin coming from Bama. You've got Caleb Downs on the other side of the ball coming from Bama. Trevion Henderson and Emeka Egbuka. The number one overall recruit, Jeremiah Smith, is going to be in the secondary for them, or I'm sorry, a wide receiver for them. On defense, they've got 8 starters returning, plus they get Downs. They lost a bunch of linebackers, but there's a bunch of 5-stars to replace those guys. They're absolutely reloading. This is going to be one of the best teams of all time. And I don't even know if I mentioned it, but they also got Chip Kelly as their offensive coordinator now. So the only thing stopping them, the only thing that's like not elite caliber here is Ryan Day. And I hate that fat face so much, but I just don't think it matters. I think that there's just way too much talent on this football team. And I think it could easily go down as one of the best football teams of all time, college football teams of all time. So I am taking the Buckeyes to win both. Beat Oregon in the regular season, beat Oregon in the championship, and hell, we might see them play 3 times. Depending on the way this bracket shakes out, if Oregon's on the other side, they could end up playing each other for a 3rd time in the Natty. So, I think the Buckeyes are just way too stacked. I love Oregon. I love the Duck. Love Dan Lanning and what he's building there. EJ, I can let you kind of take the lead if you want to about the talent there and what they're getting, because they're certainly getting a lot of talent on offense and in the transfer pool on defense as well. But I think that the level of talent that Ohio State has is just beyond.
Not so fast, my friend.
I'm doing the Corso fingers for those that are just listening. I'm doing the Corso fingers.
I'm on the other end of this. So I initially thought Ducks win in Eugene, lose because it's hard to beat the same team twice. And this is, again, both are great teams. Both are likely. I think they're both locks for the playoff. I think there's a very good chance we're going to see 3 of these games. Definitely going to see 2, unless something catastrophic happens injury wise. Right? Of course, that can happen. But
right.
I went with that. I think I love Dan Lanning. I didn't think I
I
did,
do too.
but I do. I especially after last season. So I think the pain of losing those two against Washington are going to drive this team to beat. I really think if this was a game in Columbus, I'd feel different. But I think it being in Eugene, I really think they're going to win that first one. And truthfully, I know this sounds crazy. A part of me really thinks Ohio State's focus, as much as they're going to tell you it's not, I think they want to beat Michigan, and I think that's at the top of their list.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think while Dan Lanning is thinking like I can't lose two in a row to the eventual, conference championship foe and not miss the playoffs again. I think Michigan or Ohio State is just like, we can't fucking lose to Michigan. Like, first and foremost, get that out of the way, and I know I'm not going to get fired. is what Ryan Day and
that's a good point.
Bleached mustache or dyed mustache is thinking. Or
beard. He dyes his whole beard.
The beard. So reasons why. I mean, you have this is the second year of their offensive coordinator, Will Stein of UTSA. Obviously, they looked fantastic last year. I think now we both can like Dylan Gabriel, who was a hell of a player at Oklahoma, and we hated him. Now,
welcome to the. I'm on the bandwagon now. Yeah, I hate him as a Sooner, but as a Duck, love him.
Yeah, so I really like him. I like him more than Will Howard. I get Kyle McCord stinks, and Will Howard played well at Kansas State. I don't think he's a surefire thing because he was the third string when he first got to Kansas State, and he kind of got like deferred getting, the job there, and then eventually got booted out by a 5-star kid. So while he is a clear upgrade over Kyle McCord and a good,
so is Julian Sain. Julian Sain. Just
right. So that's what I'm saying. So like I'm not going to give you a guarantee that all of a sudden Will Howard and a bunch of receivers that, while they're 5 stars, because Brian Hartline is insane. Marvin Harrison Jr. made a lot of them look very, very good. So
Emeka Egbuka is a great. I get that he gets the bump from Marvin Harrison Jr. taking double, triple coverage, whatever. But like Emeka Egbuka is a great player. So,
and what happens when he gets double covered and triple covered? So that's kind of where I was going with that. So I don't know. Same with Julian Fleming, who was their other great receiver that went to Penn State. Don't know all of a sudden he's going to be a superstar. But again, I think these teams are like very, very even. I think I'm giving them the edge because they're playing in Eugene the first game. And then I'm just giving them that edge because I think Dan Lanning's is clearly petty and super pissed off last year. And I really do think Michigan's going to be priority number 1 for Ohio State. But I mean, you're returning some really great receivers. I can go through numbers, but ultimately these guys are as stacked with blue chip players, just as Ohio State is. I would say the offensive line is probably in a better spot because the offensive line last year for Ohio State wasn't good, and then they lost the only good pieces. And I think that Oregon has a better track record with them returning 3 starters, losing their best one in their center, and Jackson's Powers Jackson. But I think they have a better track record of being able to reload and still be elite. So I give them just a small edge there. But on defense, Ohio State's defense is elite, potentially like the number 1. Oregon's defense is also, I would say, at least top 15.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like,
Oregon picked up Jabbar Muhammad from
my
Washington.
Favorite player,
Kobe. Yeah, incredible.
Favorite player.
Yeah, agreed. Same. He was fantastic in the playoffs last year. Well, all season is fantastic, but he really in that Texas game for sure. If you weren't paying attention, you really found out about him in that game. And then Kobe Savage from K-State too. Yep. But but still, I mean, a secondary does not a whole defense make. Nope. And Ohio State has the full package there. So
sure. Yeah, I think this is one of those instances where I'm giving Oregon the win at home because I do think Ohio State is still going to be pretty early on in figuring each other out as a team. Beside on defense, right? The defense is going to be pretty solid, but on offense, it might take a little bit to get going. And so I think like having the advantage in Eugene and then the Big Ten championship is kind of a coin flip at that point, right? Like I think technically Ohio State, if everything goes well, is probably be more talented. But Oregon's right there And, I think Dan Lanning's being a defensive minded guy is also going to have, that squad on defense maybe playing a bit above it. But I'm not mad at you for saying they're going to lose the both of them. I could definitely see that. I thought about that a lot.
I love Dan Lanning. Even when he made that video of I'm not going anywhere, smoking the cigar or whatever, or Alabama, I was like, I wish Bama had gotten Lanning for sure. Like DeBoer is fine, but I wish he would have got Lanning. And I love him. I just don't know what happened in that championship game, in that Pac-12 championship game, because like I think of him as a guy who, as you're saying, focuses on the right things and gets his players up for stuff. I just don't know what happened that game. Like I really don't think that Washington was that much better of a team to take two off of them like that. So
but that same team took Texas too. Like that's the thing. And they quietly got to that national. I mean, they were the runner up. So
yeah.
It is what it is. But I agree. I think this is interesting. I'm glad that we're on the other side of this.
Yeah.
Because we were definitely in sync on the ACC. I knew we were both going to just end up having to pick between these two. And I think it's going to just be a hell of a bout like it was with Oregon and Washington last year. And honestly, I just can't wait. Honestly, I wouldn't be mad if they got a third round in the playoff. That would be incredible. But I think it'll be fun. And goddamn, Judkins is my favorite, like one of my favorite college football players, and I hate that he went to Ohio State.
Dude, just broken in NCAA too. I did play a game with Ohio State to see what it was like, and he's special. All right,
bets. Yeah, you want to do go over our bets again?
Yeah, let's run through it. So I have a couple unders as well that I didn't really talk about, and a couple overs too. So Ohio State, 10.5 wins, Big Ten champs, CFP champ. Oregon, same thing, 10.5 wins, Big Ten champ, CFP champ. I'm putting in tickets for both of them on it. I'll look forward to cashing one of those whenever we eventually get there. Penn State, I think I am going to take over 9.5 wins, and I'm going to put them in for a CFP appearance. Michigan, under 9.5 wins. Iowa, over 7.5 wins, CFP appearance. Nebraska, over 7.5 wins, CFP appearance. Washington, poor Huskies, under 7.5 wins. Absolutely gutted this year, and they have a tough, double tough schedule. Rutgers, 6.5 wins. Year 2 with Shiano, I'm going to take the over. It is a tough schedule, but like I looked through it and I get to like 6 or 7 just because this is a tough schedule. So, but I'm going to trust in Shiano there. UCLA under 5.5. Again, got it. I don't think that they're going to have a good time switching conferences. And my last bet, you let me know if I'm off base on this. Michigan State Spartans, 4.5 wins. I'm taking the over.
Yeah, so my bets, I'm taking Nebraska over 7.5, Oregon over 10.5, Michigan under 9.5, Iowa over 7.5, and I'm glad you brought up Michigan State. I personally think that's free money. If you put it into context at 4.5, they had the worst year last year that they've had in forever. Terrible coaching. None of the players got along. There's zero camaraderie. And that team won 4 games and epically collapsed in 2 others. That should have been a 6-win team, as horrific as they are. And on this schedule, there's at least 8 games that are against opponents that are, if not worse, at least at their level. I'm banking on them getting at least 6. I think they're going to get back to the bowl season, get to 6-6 this year, and use that as a jumping point for 2025, where the schedule gets much easier and everyone's in his Jonathan Smith system for another year. But yeah, I agree. Michigan State over 4.5. I feel pretty confident about that.
Yeah, great coach hire for you guys too. By the way, I know you love seeing that. So, well, you were of mixed feelings about it. But
I love the Beavers.
Yeah,
but yeah, definitely happy about that. All right, that's going to do it for us. Just a reminder, we have the other 2 conferences plus our college football playoff preview episodes coming up in next week and then the following. And then right after that, we're going to have our first episode of season 4 of Tales of the Trophy. So we're going to be giving you 2 episodes this week, 2 episodes next week, and 2 episodes the following week, all leading up to college football being back. So excited.
Very excited.
For Mike, I'm EJ. Always remember, too much of anything is bad, but too much good whiskey is barely enough.
Cheers, boys.